What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to take a good old look at the most expensive cards from OP-03, Pillars of Strength. Now, the reason we're doing this today is we've seen this set for a while now. This isn't a new set anymore. It's been out for several weeks at this stage, and frankly, it is time we sit down and we have a good old look and we go, well, alright then, which of these cards are holding their value? Which of these cards are going down? Where are we looking at in terms of these cards? And also those predictions I made about certain of these cards and their relationship to other cards, did that turn out to be right? Now, just a quick note before we get going, 3 of the wanted posters, that is to say Kaido, Kid and Doflamingo, they're all rocking around $25. They're not particularly close to getting on this list. Now, obviously one of them is on the list, and I mean, it should be kind of obvious, and if not, process of elimination will get you there. But these wanted posters, there was this big question about exactly how they would end up, whether they would end up being particularly expensive, etc. The verdict is in, ladies and gentlemen, and it turns out they've ended up pretty cheap. So coming in at number 10, it's really hard to figure out whether it's the alternate art of Marco or the alternate art of Charlotte PEROSPERO. Nominally on TCG Player right now, it's actually Charlotte PEROSPERO, but I do think the more playable card and the one we see in decks more often at the moment is Marco, so I'm kind of putting these ones joint at number 10, and frankly, it's my list and you can't stop me. These are both coming in at around about the $40 mark. And they are both alternate arts of super rares, and they are both extremely playable. Marco has got that lovely skill where when you play it on your turn, you get to KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. And then when it's KO'd, you can trash an event from your hand and bring it right back. Great card. Charlotte PEROSPERO are over in yellow, but as a trigger, you can trash a card from your hand to play it. And when KO'd, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, find a Big Mom Pirates card and add it to your hand. Both phenomenal cards, and honestly the reason Marco sees more play is because Red sees more play right now. Both good cards, both ones to look out for. So in then at number 9, we've got ourselves the alternate art leader of ARLONG. But I'm telling you this right now, although we are talking about an alternate art leader here, we're still talking $45. These alternate art leaders, as you might expect, are, with one big exception which does kind of make sense, these are crashing quite nicely. These are going down like we would generally expect. If we have a look at ARLONG since the release of the set, you will notice that actually it's kind of been a weird one. It did crash quite nicely, but actually it started off at 45 and it's still rocking at like 45. A lot of these cards are crashing. I suppose it's probably fair to say that ARLONG maybe isn't. I'll be honest with you. This is a card which it's going up and down. It has gone down, but actually it's not been lower than 43 or higher than 47.50. That is quite important. It is also important it's Don X2, when attacking, pay 1, play a card of a cost of 4 or less and trigger from your hand. I've been a fan of this ARLONG. Honestly, I think this ARLONG is phenomenal. I think it's great. I love playing cards for free, and I think there is an excellent chance that we're going to be seeing more of this ARLONG as we go along. Now, in at number 8, we've got the alternate art of Charlotte KATAKURI, and basically what's going on here very simply is alternate art of an extremely playable card. But this has a graph that looks a lot like we would expect. Started off as a $150 card, briefly went up to $160. It's now sitting there at like a $57 card. And this is generally what we expect to see. These cards come out for the pre-release. They're super hyped. There's not a lot of them out there. People massively overpay. And then, of course, the set comes out. And the prices of these cards absolutely crashes. And this is still a phenomenal card, let's be clear. We're still talking about an alternate art of a secret rare. We're still talking about, on play, add a character of a cost of 8 or less to the top or bottom of the owner's life face up. It's still a phenomenal card that sees a lot of play. It's just going down because the set is actually out. In at number 7, we've got the alternate art of Charlotte Pudding. Now look, Charlotte Pudding is a very, very playable card. We see this for kind of every type of deck. On play, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, find a Sanji or Big Mum Pirates card other than Charlotte Pudding, and add it to your hand. We've seen these kind of cards see play, since the very beginning of the game. These are always playable cards, and we like them. But did anyone ever think this was actually going to be a $200 card like it started? Because I told you all extremely clearly, when I made my video telling you not to buy singles of this set yet, I told you extremely clearly this was never going to be a $200 card, and that this was absolutely ridiculous, and this was going to absolutely crash, and that's what's happened. The reality of the situation is that the only one that's ever really going to hold its value like that is Nami, which incidentally is actually a card that does basically the same thing, and as I'm recording this now is like a $150 card, but crucially, and this might sound a little bit reductive, but this is the answer, it's Nami. There's your answer. This is Nami, and therefore Nami was always going to hold its value in a way that the character like Charlotte Pudding was just not ever going to be able to. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this was inevitable. In at number 6, we've got the one wanted poster that makes the list. It's Luffy coming in at about a $70 card. But this is one that has a very weird graph. Because it started off with a $73 card, dropped as low as a $69 card, and is now rocking at a $72 card. This is one of those graphs that is extremely misleading, because the graph only actually covers $4. There is a $4 difference between the top and bottom of that graph. This is a card which has remained very flat. Like I've said, the other wanted posters, yeah, not close, ladies and gentlemen. Not even close to the list. But Luffy is Luffy. And I know that sounds like a dumb way to phrase it, but it's true. Luffy is Luffy, and for that reason, you're always going to see the Luffy card ending up being a little more expensive and a little more sought after, and frankly, there's your answer. There is a reason this card is high on the list. There's a reason it's going to stay high on the list. Honestly, pretty much forever at this stage, one would imagine. In at number 5, we got the alternate art of the leader Rob Lucci, and this one's currently sitting at a $90 card, but once again, the drop here has been quite fantastic. It started as 170, dropped as low as 75, is now sitting there at 90, but it's worth noting all the recent solds are 82 and 83. So that price we got on the screen of like 92, little misleading, not going to be that high. And the thing is, right, yeah, it's an alternate art leader, and yeah, it's a good card, don't get me wrong, but it's just a good alternate art leader. It's not a best deck in the format alternate art leader, which is what it's really going to take to push this up very high. It's a cool card that once during your turn lets you trash 2 cards from your hand when your opponent's character is KO'd to set this leader as active. It's fine, alright? It's fine. But it's not the best deck in the format, and these leaders just do not end up hugely high. Yes, I know that the Edward Newgate leader does tend to stick quite high, but even the Edward Newgate leader at this stage is only a $100 card, and yeah, I know we've recently had the nerfs which is affecting the price of that card, I admit and I agree, but the fact of the matter is, in a world where Edward Newgate is like $100, and the Roanoa Zoro, the alternate art leader from OP-01, is the only one that's really jumping up to like 220, and that's because it's Zoro and it's Romance Dawn. Remember, there is a Romance Dawn tax. Those cards tend to be higher. And it's one of the very best decks in the format. Something like Rob Lucci, it's not going to compete. And we've got a very similar thing in at number 4 with Porcus the Ace. Nominally, it's in at number 4 because the recent solds are higher. But basically, everything I just said about Rob Lucci is something that I could be saying about Ace. It is nominally up there as about a $92 card, although the recent solds are a little bit lower. And we've got ourselves a decent leader, which is alternate art, but it's not from Romance Dawn, and it's not the best deck in the format. And of course, the price has crashed since release. Started at 170, dropped down to 90. Yes, I've shown you a couple cards on this list that have pretty much held, although none going up so far. But the general theory here is, exactly as I told you it was going to be, these cards are crashing. But then we get to the top three, and there are a couple of leaders here that do buck the trend a little bit. One. Nami doesn't count. You see, what we've got from Nami here is about $105 for most expensive card in the set, but it's dropped from a $190 card on release. And here's the thing. Nami is Nami. So Nami is always going to be more expensive. Is Nami really a better leader than Rob Lucci or Ace? Maybe. It's done all right. But I do think it's fair to say that Nami, it's a good leader. It's not the best leader. It's not the best deck in the format. The results don't show us that. But it's always going to be a little bit higher because it's Nami. Nami is always going to end up being a bit higher. Yes, I know I talked about the alternate art from Romance Dawn earlier. Do please bear in mind, like I said, there is a Romance Dawn tax. Cards from Romance Dawn tend to be a little bit more expensive just by virtue of the fact that they're from Romance Dawn. And that set has been a little bit harder to get hold of, and that's pushed the price of the cards in that set up a little bit more. This is still a cool card. It's the one where you basically have to mill yourself out to win the game. It's the alternate art leader I most want from the set because I adore the artwork. It's a very cool looking card, but it was never going to end up as high as something like a Rowan or a Zorro just because it's nowhere near as playable and it's not from Romance Dawn. Please let this be a lesson when OP-04 comes out. Now, the exception we've got here is Charlotte KATAKURI. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still a leader that has dropped in price, but it's dropped from 190 to 170. Did go as low as 155, it's now back up to 170. Annoyingly, now I am including the recent solds here from TCG Player, like I have in all of them. Do please note that the last three solds are all damaged, so it's not exactly it's not a fair look, I think it's fair to say. Now, why is this ending up so much higher than all of the other leaders we've shown on this list so far? Well, remember, one of the things I keep telling you is what pushes these leaders up is because they're a ridiculously popular character or they're like the best deck in the game. This might be the best deck in the game. In the 03 meta, Charlotte KATAKURI is one of the very, very best decks. And do bear in mind, we've just had those nerfs for red, which is going to bring them down a little bit, which is only going to elevate Charlotte KATAKURI more. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this leader creep up in the coming days and weeks, because of course, like I've just told you, this is getting a boost, not because any new cards have come out, but because the closest competitors, they have dropped down quite nicely. But yeah, like legitimately phenomenal card. It's the one whereby Don X1, when attacking, look it up to one card from the top of yours or your opponent's life, place it at the top or bottom of your life, and then gain 1,000 power during this turn. Make sure you get triggers, or make sure your opponent's not getting a good card when you take a life, keep getting a boost of power. This really is a phenomenal leader. And in a number one, it's still Sogeking, but not really. Well, okay, no, it is Sogeking, right? Let's be super clear. That is the number one card in the set, the manga rare. Now, the graph is a little bit misleading because it kind of starts at 90, but on release immediately jumps up to like 550. I don't know why it was so cheap at the beginning. That was unrealistic. That's a little bit of an anomaly. I'm warning you now. But this essentially started as a $540 card, jumped up to a $760 card, and it's now, nominally, it's sitting as a $300 card, but the last three solds are like $250, $260. So it's not actually a $300 card, it's about a $260 card right now. That's what this manga rare is selling for. And here's the thing, right? If you watch my opening of OP-03, I pulled Sogeking. I pulled the manga rare. I was absolutely delighted. And I sold it. Now, I want it on the record. I made a video like I always do. I made it for OP-02 and OP-03, telling you, do not buy cards between the pre-release and the release of the set. But selling cards between the pre-release and the release of the set, oh, that's a good idea. So I went to my pre-release, I bought a box, I pulled Sogeking, I sold Sogeking for more than $300. Can't remember exactly how much, but it was more than $300, a little bit more. And I could rebuy it now for $260. I could literally go and rebuy this card today, and I would just have a bunch of free money, and I would still have this manga rare. The point is, don't buy cards between pre-release and the real release. Do sell cards, because it works quite nicely. The manga rare is always the most valuable card in the set. That is absolutely fair to say. This is by far the cheapest of them. Shanks at the moment is around about an $800 card. Please, please, please bear in mind the Romance Dawn tax is real. And Ace is about a $650 card. And this is a $260. This is by a huge margin the cheapest of the manga rares, but it is still the number one card in the set. And you'll notice I've only been looking at like the top 10 cards in this set. This is a very good set if you want to be picking up cheap singles. This is awesome. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the most expensive cards in the set, and now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about these. Tell me which ones you pulled. Tell me which ones you bought. Tell me which ones you told. Tell me anything you want to tell me about all of this in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about, well, a whole bunch of stuff, to be honest with you. Like this. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.